grow like Johnny Appleseed. That's who I am in my deeper DNA, Johnny Appleseed.
And do you have to replant these seeds every year, or do these just the seeds sort of?
Everybody asks that question. These, John, are wild flowers. You don't have to plant them at all. It's trouble to get rid of them, to tell you the truth. They scatter their seeds like crazy, and they're good at what they do. They're wild.
Wow, I mean, look at how beautiful this is.
You take a page out of Mother Nature. The rainy season comes in, so we say November, and usually by November 10th, I've got my seeds in the ground, and the and the ground is wet, and that's when they germinate.
All the years you've lived in Richmond. What?
Since 75.
Since 75. Although you came to Richmond.
I was in El Cerrito.
At El Cerrito, but you started working in Richmond in the 1950s at Stouffer Chemicals.
Oh yeah.
So I'm digging back. So
yes, you are.
So think of all the changes. What's been the biggest change you've seen over the last 70 years in Richmond?
Well, I'll tell you, my mother was born in 1900 and my father was born in 1903. I thought they saw a lot of change, John. But in my time, from 1928 to now, I have seen so much more change than they did. You know, they were born before the automobile was built, you know, and before there was much electricity. I was born just a simple country kid, you know. When I was 10 years old, I lived in the Central Valley, and I was very comfortable in the country. Anyway, my father gratefully moved to Oakland, and I went to Fremont High School, and I was a B student. I hated school, but I made myself. I was a good kid, but I did what the teacher said, and I got B's, you know. When I was 20, I was just an average person. I didn't know anything about anything. My parents couldn't guide me because they knew less than I did, you know. But by the time I was 40, I said, my God, looking back, I have unlearned everything in the last 20 years that I thought was the gospel in my first 20 years, going from 20 to 40.
You know, I grew up right across the street in that house,
yes.
And I used to come out here and play when this was just grass, and before you planted these wonderful wildflowers. And in fact, you know, this was the spot where unfortunately my father suffered cardiac arrest when he was walking his dog on a Sunday morning, and then he eventually died
What
when
year
he was here. That was in 1987. It was May 1987. He was out here on a Sunday morning walking his dog, and his dog Rex, and he suffered cardiac arrest. And by the time the first responders came to revive him, he was pretty much brain dead already. And so while he was revived, he died a week later. But I remember this spot as a kid being just a grass area.
And they mowed it every week.
And they mowed it, not always regularly.
Let me remind you what happened a couple of years after your father passed. We had a drought that lasted for 8 years,
Yes.
so that this whole area dried up,
Right.
and there was nothing but weeds.
Right.
And then in 1997, they predicted an El Nino rainfall after 8 years of drought. So that's when I started this project. I said, we're going to have a big rainfall, so I'm going to put some wildflower seeds in here.
I mean, this is a perfect example of how you're a local resident like you, took things into your own hands and took sort of a pretty bland grass area and planted these wonderful wildflowers. And you did this all on your own, right? And you did this on your own. And what inspired you to change this and make this plot beautiful?
Remember World War II? I learned how to plant vegetable garden because a victory garden.
Right.
And I like to watch things grow and develop. And years later, to tell you the truth, I could go back, when I moved into Dim Street about 1975, I had a lot of things that I tried to propagate before I discovered this island. The island was a green island, remote. I would take seeds and bulbs up to Wildcat Canyon. So I lived in Dim Street for 20 years before I discovered this island. And it was at the time of the end of the drought, at the start of a new rainy period. That's basically how it started.
I mean, what you've done here over the last 24 years has been amazing. It's changed and beautified this neighborhood, this corner, and it shows the power that one person can have to change their environment around them and make things better. And you're truly an example of that. And I want to thank you, Gil, for all of your efforts
Well,
to
John,
turn this into an
I tell
amazing
you,
place.
It takes a guy like you to recognize a guy like me, because we're somewhat of the same kind. I was born a do-gooder, and I think you were too. You know.